Hello there and welcome to the latest Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo. I'm your host, Joe Rimmer, joined remotely, although we are all still in the same place. But our producer Ian's off today, so remotely with Paul Gorst. How are you, Paul?
Yeah, all good. All good, Joe. I'm disappointed you haven't got your lovely Blood Red background that you had the other day. Where's that gone?
No, I can't turn the laptop around because Ian, our producer's off and he's got the royal blue background.
No, we can't have that.
Yeah, I can't sit in front of that. Beth Lindop is also here. Beth, you're a podcast regular nowadays, aren't you?
I am. You can't get rid of me, and it's quite strange because I can actually hear you through the wall. So this is a little bit of a unique experience, but yeah, no, happy to be here.
Yeah. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for listening. Whether you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, this will be on YouTube later on. Obviously, it's not live, so can't answer your questions. But leave us a comment, a thumbs up, some stars. All those lovely things, we appreciate them, and we will try and I always try and read through the comments and look at your feedback. It's really, really appreciated it, and it's also really appreciated for NordVPN, our sponsors. I love to give them a shout out beforehand. So to give the best discount of your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/bloodred. And our link gives you 4 months extra free on a 2-year plan. There's no risk at all with Nord's 30-day money back guarantee. The link is in the podcast episode description box. They really do help us do what we do. So thank you, Nord, for all your support. Let's get down to it. We've got plenty to talk about. It's been a busy week. Obviously, the world's greatest competition took place on Wednesday night, and Liverpool thumped West Ham for the second year running, 5-1. It was pretty enjoyable. And then Arne Slot came to his press conference today, Gorsty, with some good news on the injury front. It looks like Alisson's going to be back for tomorrow's game at Wolves. It's all going quite swimmingly. In fact, it all was going quite swimmingly until Arne Slot changed the time of his press conference and left you in a bit of a tiz, didn't he? It looks like Gorsty's just staring into space here. I think he is frozen. So, Beth, I'll speak to you about Wednesday night. He's laughing away. It just looks very, very intense. But yeah, Wednesday night was a big win, 5-1. Gorsty's gone.
He's gone.
He comes back. This is it. This is what happens when you're remote recording. But yeah, I mean, it just showed the strength and depth that Liverpool have got, didn't it? Because Cody Gakpo obviously coming in, having those 2 late goals, Salah coming off the bench. They just look very, very strong in all departments and obviously recovered from going a goal down, but they dominated much of the game after that, didn't they?
Yeah, I think it probably speaks to how strong now Liverpool's second string is. I think, you go back to a couple of seasons ago and sort of the second choice forward line was Takumi Minamino, Xherdan Shaqiri, Divock Origi, all who've contributed massively, over the years to Liverpool and to them being successful, but arguably players that if they were to be in the team for a spell, you'd be a little bit concerned. So I think now you think you've got sort of 6 players in that forward line and you'd be happy with any of them starting a game, really. And you mentioned Cody Gakpo there. I thought it was probably one of his best displays for Liverpool, sort of backing up what he did in Milan.
You said that twice this season, haven't we?
Yeah, exactly. And I think just his ability to make things happen, to drive players on the ball, he just looks so at home in that position on the left. And it's no surprise he's been quite vocal about the fact that is his favoured position, and he looks to be really excelling there. I suppose the only downside is, and we said this last week, is that he's competing with Luis Diaz, who has also had a tremendous start to the season and was given the luxury of just having his feet up on Wednesday night. So, yeah, really impressive that Liverpool can make 9 changes and still put in a performance and get a result like that. I think probably 5-1 is a bit harsh on West Ham. It wasn't really a 5-1 kind of game. And obviously 2 of those goals came sort of in the 90th minute and beyond. So, probably it doesn't accurately reflect the game, I don't think, 5-1. But that being said, I thought Liverpool did really well.
Of course, we were about to talk about the press conference, but we'll sort of leave that for now and talk about the game. What did you make of Federico Chiesa's debut? Obviously got that assist, although it was a little bit of a sort of lucky one, should we say, after a bit of a mishit. But he was very energetic, wasn't he? Got around the pitch and didn't show any effects from any longer term injury worries that some may have had when he joined the club.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of his efforts and his work rate, that was on show, wasn't it? You could tell he was really keen to make an impact and make himself a bit of a hero. His eyes would have lit up when that cross comes in from Cody Gakpo and scuffs it, doesn't he? But eventually claims an assist as a result of it. But yeah, it'll take time before we start to see the true quality of the player. I think that was something Slot acknowledged after the game himself in the press conference. Barely played, has he, since June with Italy in the Euros when they were knocked out against Switzerland, was it? Late June, I think, 30th. Didn't really have a pre-season, so it's a lot of football to miss, really, a lot of games that he hasn't been involved in. And I think Liverpool will take the time in getting him up to speed. There's no real risk in or need to throw him in at the deep end and hope and demand instant results. So I think it will be a slow burn for him, and there's no real issue with that. If he's in a position to be able to contribute more significantly, sort of around maybe December time when the fixtures really do start stacking up and you're looking to maybe rest Mo Salah for one or two, then I think that's when his weight will be worth, or when he will be sort of able to properly become acclimatized. And it's an ideal scenario for Slot, really. Looking to drop in a sixth attacker into a forward line that's already thriving with the five who are in there at the moment. They've all been amongst the goals, haven't they, so far this season? 15 between them in just 7 games. And yeah, Chiesa looked like a man who was, really keen to make an impact. The quality is a little bit absent at times, but there's no real rush or risk. So yeah, I was pleased with what we saw from it. I thought there's a little nutmeg on who was it now? The centre back, I can't remember who it was now. Was it Tadibo? Thought that was quite cheeky. And yeah, he just looks like someone who is absolutely delighted to be at Liverpool. And I think that's important. We know we turned down Barcelona and Saudi Arabia in the summer, and someone who is still only 26. I think we have to remember that. I think the fact that Liverpool got him on a little bit of a cut price deal, maybe sometimes you'd assume that he's closest to 30 than he is, but he's somewhere around his peak age at the moment. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do for the long term. And Wednesday night was a decent sort of taster to come. Really, he looks really fast, doesn't he, and mobile, and able to sort of get out of tight spaces. And I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do, and he's versatile as well.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of look at that Bologna game next week and think it might be a game that you could play him in. I know it's a big Champions League game, but they've obviously got a big league game at the weekend, and it feels like one where you could make one or two changes. And I think it might suit him, obviously, coming up against Italian teams. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how deploys him going forward. Just sticking with you, Gorsty, we were saying before you disappeared briefly before. A good performance on Wednesday night, and then Slot coming into his press conference with immediate good news on the Alisson front. It looks like he'll be back tomorrow, and it's sort of everything's going swimmingly for Slot. I know that hiccup a few weeks back against Nottingham Forest, but otherwise everything going swimmingly for Slot at the moment, except for maybe that change of press conference time that you didn't love. Is Gorsty frozen again? No, he's back.
No, I'm still here. You're frozen on mine.
Yeah, no, go on. It was, everything's going swimmingly.
It is, isn't it? He couldn't really have wished for a better start, other than the fact that he had that slight bump in the road at Nottingham Forest, or rather Nottingham Forest at Anfield. Other than that, it's been really good. A really seamless transition. Liverpool have looked good. They've looked sharp. You can tell what he's trying to do tactically. You can tell what he's looking to do with his front players. His defence are really strong. We've only conceded 2 goals, haven't they? They're not really conceding too many proper chances. I know that Bournemouth scored an offside goal and West Ham did, but for me, offside is offside. I don't really count them too much or put as much emphasis on those as perhaps other people do. And I thought it was surprising, actually, that he got asked about the amount of chances that his teams are conceding, because if anything, Liverpool have looked really strong defensively with the back 4, back 5 being very consistent, and players who are first choice players at Liverpool. In the large part, we know Alisson missed the Bournemouth game, but generally it's been Alisson, Trent, Robertson, Konate, and Van Dijk, hasn't it? With Gravenberch, in the form of his career, arguably, and then McAllister. So Liverpool look really strong there. So I was surprised when he got asked at the press conference today, is he concerned about the chances that he's given up? Because
just on that,
I haven't really seen too many that Liverpool have coughed up. You know, we know West Ham obviously scored.
Game's a bit of an anomaly, isn't it?
Oh, am I on? Am I there?
You're there, yeah. I was just asking. The West Ham game's a bit of an anomaly.
Yeah. I mean, it was a much changed back five, wasn't it? You know, Simicast in there, Kelleher starts, Conor Bradley, Kwanzaa and Gomez. So yeah, I wasn't too worried about that. I think Liverpool have been really strong defensively. I think that's something that Trent Alexander-Arnold referenced himself last week when he spoke to reporters in the mix zone. So Forest aside, it's been really good from Slot, and I think just sort of quietly going about his business, really, in terms of the wider football world aren't really paying too much attention to Liverpool, which at the moment is a good thing.
Yeah. Where do you see them in the title race, Beth? I mean, like you say, it feels like they're drifting under the radar a little bit. And obviously we watched that battle between Man City and Arsenal last weekend. I thought it was an intriguing game, actually. I thought it was, they seemed to really wind each other up, both of those teams. And I kind of feel like that could play into Liverpool's hands a bit. I don't necessarily think any of us went into the season thinking that Liverpool could and should challenge for the title. But in light of that Rodri injury, in light of some of Arsenal's slight struggles in front of goal, you know, it just could be a season where opportunity opens up if Liverpool can win the games that they should win.
Yeah, I think so. I think sort of when you compare 11s, I still think Liverpool have as strong an 11 as either Manchester City or Arsenal. I still think they've got a number of world-class players in the team. You know, maybe as a team collectively, they were a bit below the level of Arsenal and City last season, but I still think they have players who, when they're fit and when they're firing, are just as dangerous as the rivals. So I think that Rodri injury is huge. Like you say, you know, you never want a player of his quality to be out injured, and it's sort of a shame for him, particularly coming a week or so after he spoke out about the calendar and how congested it is, and you know how much of a role that played in him getting injured is, you know, I suppose we'll never really know, but it's undoubtedly a huge blow for City, and it does hand Liverpool and Arsenal a bit of an advantage, as much as, you know, it doesn't sound morally right to say that about a player being injured, but you know, that when you look at the numbers and the amount of games they've won with and without him, and the amount of chances they've conceded with and without him, it's massive. Now, I suppose the caveat to that is, you know, they were without him at the start of this season, and it didn't look to faze them at all. And also when they've been without him in the past, it's been for the odd couple of games here or there. So I'm sure they'll look to try and develop more of a strategy, a long-term strategy. Now they're going to be out without him for the season. And of course they can go and buy in January if they need to. I certainly wouldn't be surprised if they go in for Zubimendi in January. I think that would be a very interesting one. But yeah, I think Arsenal, obviously they've started the season really well. They've won 2 really tough away games, got a point as well at the Etihad. So they look really, really strong. But you do feel like the emotion, and it's something that gets levelled at them a lot, but you feel like the emotion, certainly in that game last week and the fallout from that, it already seems to be getting on top of them a little bit. And I just think the fact that Liverpool are sort of under the radar, and I think that sort of aligns with how Slot is as a person as well. He's quite he seems quite unflappable, really. And like when you speak to him in presses, and obviously Gorst, you'll know this a lot more than me, but I went to his presser last week and post Bournemouth as well, and he just has this real relaxed kind of air about him. And you know, of course, you're going to feel like that after some good wins, but I just feel like he's quite a cool customer, and I think that could really stand Liverpool in quite good stead.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see him if Liverpool do have a little bit of a bad spell, or, you know, Liverpool have been controversy-free this season, haven't they, so far? You know, I saw that Darren England is going to referee a Liverpool match for the first time since that Luis Diaz goal at Tottenham last year. But I can't think of many incidents, you know, touch wood, many injuries, things like that the Slot has had to deal with. So I think when those things do come along, and they will come along, he will have to deal with them. And it should be interesting to see whether, like you say, that cool exterior is breached by some of these incidents. But right now he looks good, and yeah, looked at Arsenal last week, and I didn't really have a massive problem with what they did. I thought they did quite well with 10 men and did what you should do, which was spoil and make life difficult for Man City. So, but I do think we've seen flaws in every team so far. I've seen Liverpool with that Nottingham Forest game put a seed of doubt into our minds. City with the Rodri injury now, and then Arsenal have drawn a couple of games, and obviously, like you say, emotionally they seem to get quite het up, don't they? So it should be a really interesting title race. Key to that will be Luis Diaz, Gorsty, and his form if he continues the way he is. There's some really good quotes from him today onto Sky Sports about Slot's training sessions, or how good they've been, what he asks of his wingers about how he comes. He's been asked to come inside every time Salah and Trent get the ball. He called Slot spectacular and said they had a great relationship. It bodes very, very well, doesn't it? And I think I may have mentioned this on last week's pod, but I think Sean Bradbury mentioned it. It was quite Mane-esque the way he took his goal at the last weekend. I mean, he could be massive for Liverpool if he can carry on this form. What have you made of his start, and what have you made of some of the positive stuff he's had to say about Slot?
Yeah, I've been massively impressed. Obviously, it sort of felt like going into the summer that if any of Liverpool's forward line were going to move on, it probably would have been him. There was obviously a lot of speculation, probably not, an awful lot of foundation in it in terms of, there were no bids actually submitted for him, but that there was a lot of speculation linking him to Barcelona, and his dad comes out, doesn't he, and he sort of adds a little bit of fuel to the fire, speaking about how he's always wanted to play for Barcelona. So it felt like the stars were aligning for him to leave, and obviously the Anthony Gordon interest as well. It sort of felt like he was a player who perhaps wouldn't be pivotal in sort of Arne Slot's reign, and it's proved the complete opposite so far. Like, obviously he scored 5 goals, which is massively impressive, but aside from that, he just looks absolutely electric in every game that he's played so far. It's sort of a return to his best that, as we saw when he first came in from Porto, just driving at players, taking players on. And that end product that was lacking at times last season, it seems to be back with a vengeance, really. And I think it was 8 league goals he had in total last season, so he's already more than halfway beyond that target. Now, maybe it's a purple patch, maybe the goals will dry up. He's probably not going to keep scoring at a rate of a goal per game. If he does, then Liverpool most certainly, you think, will be in a title race. But yeah, just really, really encouraging. And I think, it's really nice to hear players speak about Slot in the way that they have the last couple of weeks. Trent Alexander-Arnold obviously spoke sort of glowingly about him the other week. And McAllister, I think, has spoken really highly of him this week as well. So it feels like, post Jurgen Klopp, there was the potential for maybe a period where the players are getting up to speed with the new coach, and they're not, maybe not quite feeling it. There's a bit of a post-Klopp hangover, but that doesn't seem to be the case, which is really encouraging.
Yeah, go on, Ghosty. I think you wanted to talk to me.
No, I was just going to say he's obviously started the season really well, hasn't he? And Slot got asked today, didn't he, in the press conference about is there anything he's doing differently with Diaz compared to last season, and he did his absolute best not to sort of hype him up too much. He barely even referenced them in terms of speaking about an individual. He sort of effused the group, as he tends to do, and he doesn't want the focus being on any one player, which probably works when you're at Feyenoord, where with respect to them, there are fewer stars in the team. At Liverpool, when you've got Mo Salah and Virgil van Dijk, Alisson Becker, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Luis Diaz, at a certain point, these players are going to be in the sort of form that is going to bring interest and questions of an individual nature. So, at times, Slot maybe has to deliver a bit more praise and a bit more sort of, I guess, just something to give us column inches, I guess, on terms of what he thinks about these players, because what Diaz has said in these Sky Sports quotes is very different to what Slot was saying today. He was almost kind of suggesting that he hasn't done anything, and they're all quality players, so quality players show their quality from time to time. Just trying to play it all down, but it doesn't quite work the same when you're at a club like Liverpool with the level of star that they have. So, he started the season brilliantly, Diaz. Long may it continue. You wonder how much of it is being driven by the speculation around his future, the speculation around players outside of the club, i.e. Anthony Gordon, and just generally the form of his kind of rival for that position in Cody Gakpo, who himself has been superb in the 2 games that he started as well. So, yeah, lots to admire in Liverpool's forward line at the moment. Like I say, 15 goals between them. A third of that gone directly to Luis Diaz, and long may it continue, because I think that's just been the sort of big question mark around Luis Diaz, because he's such an exciting player. Every time he gets the ball, you're on the edge of your seat, because we can drive at players, take them on, go left, go right, and you just want a little bit more end product in terms of when he's in front of goal, a chance to get a shot off, start getting that goal tally up a bit more, and he's up to 5 now, which was mid-February by the time he got that last season. So, he is one of the players who is benefiting massively from the tweaking style, should we say, at the moment.
Yeah, I had to look at his numbers earlier this week, and I think his biggest issue is he has big, long runs of games without goals. And I think Liverpool's previous forwards, and it maybe is a bit unfair to compare him to Mane, but that is his predecessor on the left-hand side. But Mane never went such periods. I think it maybe in his final season, not his final season, sorry, the 2020-21 season when, Liverpool lost all the centre-halves. It was a bit of a crisis season. But other than that, I think Mane went sort of like his longest spell without a goal was 5, 6, 7 games, whereas Diaz, I think, went like 11 or 12 last season, which, I think if Liverpool are really going to challenge for the title, they need him to get beyond things like that.
Yeah, I mean, the Man City, sorry, Joe, the Man City game's the one that jumps out at me last season, where he had maybe 2 or 3 really good opportunities to stick the winner away, and he had Kyle Walker on toast that game, and he had them struggling, and it was a superb performance, particularly second half, but then the chance to get the winner and be the hero was there for him a couple of times, and he didn't take it, and Liverpool ended up sort of ruining a missed opportunity to secure what would have been a huge win at the time. And I just think things like that are what needs to change. Not a whole lot else does, just when these big moments arrive, make sure you're there to be on the end of it. And so far, you have to say he is doing that.
Yeah, you want him to be selfish, don't you? I mean, I thought it was quite a good sign against Bournemouth last week when he sort of took on 2 players, goes through, and he really should square it, but he shoots them straight at the goalkeeper, and then he scored not long after. But if you look back at very, very different players and obviously very different outputs, but if you look back at Salah's start to life at Liverpool all those years ago, I always remember there was a people were saying he was wasteful at the time. And I particularly remember Man City away when they lost 5-0, and it was quite a close one, wasn't it, until Mane sending off, and I think Salah had 2 or 3 chances in that game, and he sort of tamely put them at Ederson at the time, and I think with Diaz, I just think he needs to get a bit more selfish, and he seems to have that a little bit this season. I love the way he sort of got in there at Ederson at United with the header, and he felt a little bit more like things were going through him against Bournemouth. So
there was one where he hit the post as well against Forest, didn't he? If that goes in, it's probably a completely different game on the day. Yeah, he definitely has the bit between his teeth at the moment.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I would say is I find fascinating about all these players coming out and talking about Slot. I mean, it's a very different club to what it was when Klopp took over. But when Klopp took over, you'd find all these players would talk about the human being, the sort of inspirational chats they've had with him, the hugs. The hugs was a big thing back then. Whereas everyone's talking now, it seems to be all the tactical stuff, doesn't it? And how impressive he is on the training ground, and how organised he is, and how he knows all about their game, and how he's working with them. And that's kind of what Liverpool need, isn't it? Because they don't really need someone to inspire the club back to the levels it has been, because it's there. It just needs someone to take them on, tactically maybe now. So it's really, really encouraging reading some of these things about Slot. And like you say, Gorsty, even if he doesn't want to say it about himself, clearly the players have been quite impressed so far with the types of training sessions that he's delivering, because, you can tell they're not just giving him platitudes. You can tell in the types of detail that they're going into that obviously what he's doing on the training pitch is pretty impressive. So it bodes well. Beth, last year at Wolves, they went a goal down. It was one of those comebacks at the start of the season. They absolutely dominated it in the second half, didn't they? 1-3-1. Wolves have had a really poor start to the season, but they do start games quite well. I mean, it will be quite tricky for Liverpool tomorrow. I kind of feel like it's one that Liverpool should win, but I don't know. I know I can remember quite a lot of wins there, but I feel like Wolves always give Liverpool a tough test.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like you say, as much as Liverpool have a really good record there in recent years, I can't remember too many easy games there. Obviously, last year it was, 3-1 probably doesn't explain the story. It doesn't reflect the story of the game, really. Liverpool were obviously behind in that one, and it sort of felt like, I can't remember when Andy Robertson puts them in front, but it wasn't until later on, and then obviously it's sealed by Harvey Elliott sort of really late on then. So that was a tough one. There was the one obviously where Divock Origi scored really late on as well.
Yeah.
And even when they won there in the title winning season, again, there was a couple of times where you did really feel like the game was in the balance. Of course, it's a different manager to a couple of years back. It's some different players as well. But it's always a tough place to go. And you mentioned they've had a difficult start to the season, but I suppose the flip side to that is, the crowd will be bang up for it. They'll be willing them on. And they've sort of got to pick up points at some point. So, Liverpool can't afford to be complacent. I think, that's one thing that has been quite, I think we talked about it on the pod last week, but Slot's sort of forthrightness when he's asked about teams, and he's sort of been quite honest and said, well, Liverpool haven't faced anyone who finished in the top half last season or finished in the top 6 or 7.
By the way, Beth, I loved how he kind of dismissed United's title chances today with a little. He said, didn't he? We expect United to improve, but not win the title, and just kind of put them back down.
It is really amusing, and I can understand maybe fans of the clubs who he's talking about feeling a little bit disparaged by some of those comments. But I genuinely don't think he means it in a disrespectful way. I think it is just purely. I think he's just being realistic, and I think probably. Most of the clubs that he gives judgment on this season, I feel like his judgments will turn out to be spot on. So, I think Liverpool, that they know they've already had one instance this season of going into a game, maybe expecting to win and not quite happening for them. They're away from home. So I think it will be tough, but I think Liverpool just looks so good at the moment that, they're going to have chances, and it's just whether they can put them away. And you mentioned about Luis Diaz and the form that he's in. I think that's one advantage that Liverpool have over Arsenal and maybe even Manchester City in this title race is I think that Liverpool have more options, more players who are capable of scoring goals. I think Arsenal, their set pieces have been massive for them already this season. But other than that, you've got Saka, who's a brilliant scorer of goals. Havertz has become a little bit more prolific since going to Arsenal, but, isn't maybe someone who's going to get you 25 goals a season, 20 plus goals a season. Ødegaard's out for them as well for a little while, so that's a big source of their creativity gone. And with City, you sort of feel like if Haaland's not scoring, then who is their other prolific scorer? Whereas I think Liverpool have, certainly 5 forwards, with the exception of Chiesa, who, may well turn out to be prolific for Liverpool. But you have 5 forwards who can probably get 15 goals in all competitions if they stay fit. So I think that's a real advantage that Liverpool have, and hopefully whoever plays tomorrow will get a couple of goals.
Well, whoever plays tomorrow, let's decide between us. It's another tough selection, this, because obviously touch wood. Liverpool haven't had too much bad luck with injuries this season. Harvey Elliott's the only one sidelined. Gorst, I'll let you start. Alisson straight back in goal, yeah?
Yeah, I think so. Kelleher's done absolutely nothing wrong, has he? He's had 2 really good games, actually, against Bournemouth and West Ham. But Alisson is fit, so Alisson plays, yeah. Trent comes back in. Andy Robertson should be okay, shouldn't he? And, I think Kanate and Van Dijk come back in as well. And that means it's an entirely new back 5.
It's quite straightforward, though, Beth. You on board with that?
Yeah, I'm echoing Gorsty there. I think it's Liverpool's strongest back line.
Because your midfield, Beth.
I think Szoboszlai comes back in. I think McAllister comes back in. I think Gravenberch comes back in. I think he obviously got to put his feet up, didn't he, in midweek, and hasn't put a foot wrong this season really. So yeah, I think Liverpool's midfield should hopefully be fairly well rested after midweek. So yeah, McAllister, Szoboszlai, and Gravenberch.
Yeah, McAllister straight back to the scene of a game where I've never seen a player more knackered in my life than the first half of last year. Actually, the only time I've seen that, Gorst, is when you had to play centre mid against Mersey travel alongside Liam Thorpe.
That's right.
Yeah. That midfield, same as yours, Gorsty.
Do you know what? Just to sort of play devil's advocate, I'd maybe keep Curtis Jones in there as the 10 in places of Bosley. There's no question that Gravenberch comes back in after having a good week's rest. McAllister thought was really good off the bench the other night. And Jones, I'd just like to see him given a bit of a run out in this number 10 position, actually, because you look at when he gets the ball in high areas of the pitch, the things that he can do. And that pass for Jota for the second goal was just sort of textbook number 10 play, wasn't it? You know, a little nutmeg on the defender, plays it through to Jota, who sticks it away first time. And he actually starts that move as well from deep. So, yeah, I think he's done enough to keep his place. And I wouldn't mind seeing him get a run out in that position.
It's a good shout. I think I'd stick with Szoboszlai just because I think it's funny. I know when we've been on this pod with Doyley hasn't seemed to have been convinced, but I think he's been a big part of what Liverpool have done well this season, Szoboszlai. So he's in there for me. Gorsty, I'll go back to you with your forward line. This is where it really does get tricky, doesn't it? Because anyone you leave out, you feel pretty unfair on. But yeah, it's a tough one.
Salah starts, doesn't he? You bring Salah back in for Chiesa. Núñez or Jota. Tough, isn't it? Núñez didn't do a whole lot wrong the other night. Doesn't seem to be getting the sort of volume of chances like he did when in Klopp's system. Don't know if that's just a coincidence or a little early season quirk, but the chances don't seem to be falling to him as regularly as they did. But he did nothing wrong, really. Obviously, he took his goal superbly against Bournemouth. But I just feel at the moment, if Jota gets a chance, he'll get you the goal. And he didn't even play too much the other night, did he? And still comes away with a couple to his name. So I'll keep Jota in. And then the big one is on the left, isn't it? What you do? Is it Gakpo? Is it Diaz? Both of them have been excellent. Probably just stick with Diaz, just about.
Beth?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to go Salah. I'm going to bring Diaz back in purely just because he's had a rest. I'm going to stick with Núñez up front, actually. I think Jota obviously took his goals really, really well the other night, but I still think his overall game isn't quite up to, his very best level. I think Núñez, his physicality could be quite good in this game. And then you bring Jota on maybe after 60 minutes, he'll be bang up for it against his old club. So yeah, I'm gonna put Núñez in there. Yeah,
I think I'm torn. That's the position. I think Salah comes in. I think Diaz comes back in. Really harsh on Gakpo, who's playing, like you say, probably two of the best games I've seen him play for Liverpool in his last two starts. But then Diaz is also doing the same thing really this season. So harsh on Gakpo, but that's just the way it is. And yeah, essentially, I just think it's tough. I probably just about go with Jota, just because I think Liverpool will see a lot of the ball, and if they can pen Wolves back, you'd expect him to be getting on the end of chances. But then if Liverpool play at any point on the break, that's when I think Núñez can come into his own. So it's really a flip of a coin, but I probably just about go with Jota. But it's not a slight on anyone who gets left out of that forward line at the moment. And one of the great things for Liverpool is they can bring three quality players off the bench. And there aren't many teams, like you said before. Man City, all right, Haaland very rarely doesn't score, but and Arsenal have some problems sometimes in attack, but no one can really stand up with Liverpool's six, can they? Because that's just real six quality players. Give us some predictions. Gorsty, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, I think it'll be tough. But I think Liverpool will win, and I think it might be a 3-1. I think it'll be maybe a similar sort of game to last season, really, where Wolves are really in it until the second and then maybe a late third. I've seen them against Newcastle was a couple of Sundays ago. They were very unlucky to lose that. Conceded a couple of worldies from, I think it was Fabian Schär and Harvey Barnes. Played really well otherwise. So it'll be tough, but I think Liverpool will have enough.
Beth?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the same, 3-1 Liverpool.
Any reason why, or just?
Yeah, I think we might concede, but I think I just can't see Wolves with the way the defence is. I mean, they lost 6-2 to Chelsea, did they, a couple of weeks ago as well?
They've just had a bad injury as well in defence, haven't they?
Yeah,
I just sort of, I think Liverpool will have too much attacking wise, providing they don't revert to how they were against Forest. But I think they'll create too much for Wolves to be able to keep them at bay.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'd go with 3-1 as well. And I think the Forest game at the moment, I'd worry more if Wolves were coming to Anfield, because then there's more onus on them they can sit in. Whereas when they're at home, they're going to have to go with the crowd attack, and that's when you would expect Liverpool to get chances. And like you, Gorst, they could see it being a bit similar to last year. Wolves starting well, putting them under a lot of pressure, but Liverpool starting to turn that screw. And if you think back to the second half last year, it just became like, chance after chance for Liverpool, and Wolves were penned in. So, hopefully Liverpool can do the same tomorrow afternoon. That's all we've got time for. Sorry for some of the problems there, but hopefully we'll all be back in the same room fairly soon once our producer comes back. And we'll be back on Monday to look back on Wolves, to look ahead to Bologna, and plenty of Liverpool games to get stuck into. So we'll see you then. Thanks for tuning in. Sure.